Good morning, and welcome to another disjointed version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your distraught and disgruntled host, Voice of Doom. Good morning. 5:30, and I figured I'd do a diatribe since I'm having trouble sleeping, and so is my kid Max. Want to make a few announcements before I get into my latest ranting. I've started a new channel on Rumble, and I put a introductory video on there, which isn't as good as I hoped it would be, but nobody will be watching it for a while anyway, so we'll see what happens with that. But my diatribes may be a bit discombobulated because I want to try to do things that kind of recapitulate what I've already said, and for the sake of the Rumbleites, and still continue on my YouTube, because I have no bone to pick with YouTube, and I just want a little more exposure and see what happens. And my special edition, when I said I would do it in July, I realized that I'm going against the very credo and philosophy that I have, that we won't have the luxury of doing anything in July, except we'll have much bigger fish to fry, and that means we're going to go hunting for fish to fry, because by July things should be pretty bad. Okay, I haven't done a diatribe in a couple days, and the world and what used to be the United States has gotten exponentially worse in 2 days. I mean, I don't know how much longer we can go on like this, because it just doesn't slowly slide toward the abyss, but we're just going by leaps and bounds. Every day is 10 times worse than the last. And so I will talk about the latest idiocy from our so-called government, and the idiocy of just everything that's happened over the last few years. Now, I guess the number one, there's two subjects going on right now, besides the fact that Petri Dish is in Dublin with his no-account son, shaking hands with his old long-lost ancestors, and acting like an elder statesman, or whatever the hell he is. So that's of no importance, because he's of no importance. He is absolutely dysfunctional. He has no function, except as the brunt of jokes. Now, leaks of sensitive military information has been happening since 2020, and the initiator of those leaks was a teenager who worked on an army base or somewhere. I don't know all the details, it's very confusing, but apparently this guy was bored because he was being locked in the clampdown in 2020, and so he started a little group where, since he worked on an army base, he had access to info, and they started some little cabal of people who were sharing information, and this guy was a hero because he was coming up with all this stuff that they're like, this guy is coming up with all these secrets from the military, and then we find out it's true later. So the guy he wanted attention, okay? Don't you see how all this social media and the whole it used to be national security, which there is none. You see how it all ties together? That's why I'm going to do this special edition where I tie all this stuff together. And even with a brain, can already see it. You don't need me to talk about how this is all connected. A guy works on an army base. He's a teenager. He's on social media. He wants attention. He gets attention. Then they stop giving him attention. And he's saying, if you don't comment on my stuff, then I'm not going to post anymore. And then he starts posting the actual documents. Okay, then it leaks. Maybe he wasn't the actual leaker, but the fact of the matter is forget about what Jefferson said, that a strong nation depends more on an informed populace than a strong government. Forget that. We're not informed. They don't want us informed. You think every one of those stupid documents that this guy found hasn't already been usurped by whatever enemies we have out there? Friends and enemies alike? Of course they have. They know everything that we have. The reason that so-called government is pissed is because they don't want the public in the what used to be the United States to know it. They want to keep us in the dark. The Ruskies and the CCPers already have all this information. And if CCP gets information, I'm sure they hand it over to their friend Vlad. So, anyway, on my first episode on Rumble, I just lost my train of thought. I talked about the cast of characters that I use and how I use different names so that they're not confused. And I mentioned a few people that I'm really not interested in. I don't talk about them a lot. I don't talk about the giraffe, and I don't talk about Antarctica boy, Acosta. I talk about Pelosi. I talk about Xi, happiness. I talk about Vlad the Mad. I talk about the new Winston Churchill. And add those to my litany of cast of characters. Gallery of rogues, including Petri Dish, that ridiculous wife of his, no account son, the whole bunch of guys. But you'll get used to my jargon. Everybody does. All 14 of my subscribers and my one true fan understands how I talk. Now, as far as these leaks go, you see how one thing leads to another. You clamp down people, they want attention. Everybody wants attention now. I want attention. I mean, everybody wants to be a star. Everybody wants to be a rock and roll star in their own way and get attention. So they put their crap out on the www, and the next thing you know, nobody's paying attention to me. I got to do something more. I mean, I'm one of 8 billion people, but nobody's commenting on my stuff. So they keep information from us. Our enemies have it. We're our own worst enemy. And for the benefit of the people of Rumble, who don't know my work yet, I will say that I am praying for the conflagration earnestly, because the sooner it happens, the sooner we can move on. We can't go on like this, just inching and creeping toward a cliff that's a bottomless pit. So when I talk about Manhattan being incinerated and how I really have no mercy or concern about that, it's not out of malice toward people. I feel sorry for them. They will live forever. They will move on to another life. We won't have to worry too much about the mainstream media or whether Fox News is disinformation or any of that stuff, because it will all be dust. And we can move on. We will give Petri Dish and his entourage a little bit more to worry about than whether biological males are allowed in sports in the public schools. Women's sports. Genetic women that have babies, or at least the equipment to have babies. Let's not get into that, because we have another subject of idiocy. E23 has announced that 67% of all people who used to be Americans will have electric cars within 9 years. But we gotta remember, we cannot sully our fine landmass covered with bacteria with mines. So if we're going to get the lithium we need tons and tons and tons of, we will have to go to our good buddies and friends at the CCP. And if we want the cobalt that goes into these batteries, we will have to get a bunch of kids to crawl into holes and dig it out with their bare hands. Tons and tons and tons of it in order to make the millions of cars that we need. Now the problem is nobody wants them because it's obvious. It's not a known commodity yet. Nobody knows exactly what the repercussions of having an electric car is, but they can see with their own eyes that it's not convenient. Now, I don't have much time left, but like I said, if William Howard Taft had been the first president to ride in a motor car, and he got out and he said, "This is the future, kill your horses now. I want cars for everybody, I want them now, get them out." Well, it took a while, but not that long. It took innovation, it took greed, it took genius from weirdos like Henry Ford to go, if we can mass produce these, make it affordable for your average person, I will hire workers. It's capitalism, it works off itself. Go and do your own homework about how the assembly line was created. But they didn't force people to get a car. It came around. Now the infrastructure was built up as the cars started being mass produced. Gas stations were mass produced. Trucks carrying gas to the gas station. Come on. I don't want to have to go into the weeds with this. But I will say that when I was listening to Rush and he started to make sense for me when I started becoming more of a righty, more conservative, I guess you could say, a classical liberal who could see the sense in a lot of things. He explained why the common clay should owe a debt of gratitude to rich people, because they buy things when they're expensive, and they allow the companies to flourish and create a more efficient technology for that self-same item to where the common clay can afford them. Now everybody remembers when you needed $2,500 to buy a video camera back in the 80s. Everybody remembers when you had to spend hundreds and hundreds for a big screen TV. Thousands of dollars. And everything was more expensive, and the rich wanted to be the first ones on their block to get something new, so they paid more money for it. And then the companies were able to make profit in order to be more efficient to create a more streamlined version for the common clay. Now everybody has a camera in their pocket. Take videos everywhere. You see how that works? So without rich people buying these newfangled items, the common clay can't. Now, they're making the electric cars. They're selling them for $50,000 to $60,000, but I guess I'm hearing if you have to change the battery every 6 years or so, that's another $40,000. So it's untenable for your average person to have an electric car. I was watching the news today in the morning, and there is flooding in the Gulf Coast region. Cars are up to their elbows in water. Now I'm just thinking to myself, if these were all electric cars, would they be able to plow through this water? And if they get stuck in the water, will the battery be dead and need to be They're going to have a conflagration. They're going to kill off 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the population of the Earth as a coda. And what used to be America will have nothing left but 1/4 of the population. And then we'll have plenty of resources in order to have them all drive electric cars. They will all be elites. So that's how that future is going. I don't think the electric car is going to take off. I don't think he's going to get his wishes in the next 9 years. And I think we are the Cryingstock of the world because we're being distracted by pipe dreams. We're in a opium den. We're in a purple haze of delusion. So I could say more, but I think this was a good one to keep up on current events, and then I'm going to put this on Rumble and YouTube and see how it goes. And I'll tell you more about the microcosm on my next episode because things are getting more interesting. All right, have a good morning, and I'm going to try to get some sleep when I get a new bed. All right, good night.